Hello and welcome to the next episode of Bonsai Stuff Podcast. It's me, Scott Martin from Bonsai Matsu. Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you also for getting in touch in between last episode and this episode. It's been really, really nice to hear from people and it's as I say, it's always encouraging. Wanted to start with what I finished last time. Have I finished repotting my pines? Yes, I have. Finally finished repotting for the year, which is, for this season anyway. So all the deciduous done, and got into all the evergreens and pines, and they're all done too. So it's party time. Put my feet up, kick back, do nothing. Well, not really, because we're about on the eve or the cusp of spring starting, and the trees have already started to open. I was mentioning to someone just the other day that I've already started pinching out my Japanese maples, because a few of those seem to have opened a lot earlier than most of the other trees. We've also got that time of year where we get sunny, windy days here in Melbourne, Australia, and at night we can still get the very cold nights with the frost. So I've got retractable shade cloth above part of my setup where I put a few of the more delicate plants and the ones that maybe open a little bit earlier or that have been repotted and need a bit more TLC. So first thing in the morning, go back, draw them back, let the sun come in, let the air circulation come in, let the trees start to push a little bit. Later that night, as the temperature starts to drop down and starts to get a little bit colder, head out there, draw the shade cloth over, rinse, repeat, over and over and over every day. So we hopefully get to the point where we start getting some warmer nights and I can leave it open, which will be nice. I'm looking forward to it. And while I was finishing my repotting, I always think about different things I can put on the podcast that are of interest to people, and a little snippet of information that might sort of help or inspire or encourage or something like that along the way. And one of them was, make sure you clean your tools. It's really important that you look after your tools, because they're your link between you and your bonsai. So if your tools are rough and not maintained or not looked after, the cuts aren't clean, trees won't heal as quickly as what they should. Therefore, it's all those little 1%ers that make the big difference at the end of the day. You look at someone's trees and they're amazing. It's the 1%ers. It's the little things they do that you don't do. And maintaining and cleaning your tools, especially your repotting tools, which you may only use a couple of times throughout the year. And when you do use them, they're flogged. But you need to make sure that when you finish working with them, they're nice and clean, they're sharpened, they've been oiled, they've been put away, not for now, but for next time. So when you go to repot your trees, you pull them out and they're ready to go. It's like any of your tools in your kit. Having them sharp and ready to go means that you can get into whatever it is you want to do straight away. There's not half an hour of prep work, which is that may cause a hesitation for you going, got to go out there and prune my trees, but I can't do it because I've got to go and clean my tools. You know what? I'll do it tomorrow. No, clean them now. Make sure they're ready to go. So when you do need them, they're on hand and ready to go. Also, I want to talk about repotting aftercare just before I push into the next episode of the podcast, because I was talking with someone the other day and talked to him about the need to protect the trees once they've been repotted, and there was, a forum somewhere, there was someone saying, put them in full sun, do this, do that. Well, I just want to go through what I do, and I think that this is what I've been taught and works really well with me, is that once you've repotted your trees, they just need a bit of protection from the wind. They need to make sure you need to make sure that they're secured into the vessel, whether it's a pot or whatever it is that you put your trees onto. But they need protection because the trees are going to go through a slight stage of shock, then recuperate, catch their breath, and then start growing and pushing on. So it's that a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, that they need to be sheltered and protected. For me, I keep them inside in my workshop, make sure that they can not have any issues with attempting to photosynthesize or to be put into a position where they can be blown around and moved and disturbed. So they can just sit still, catch their breath, and then I move them out into a protected area on the benches. And then once I start seeing solid growth and starting to move, then they get moved into a more open position. And by then, the frosts have gone, the weather seems to be settling down a little bit more into that spring growth, and everything's taking off. So that's what I do. I just want to reiterate that's where I sit with aftercare for repotting. I think the aftercare is almost more important than the repotting process itself. Making sure that your tree can recuperate and can get back on its feet, so to speak, or start generating roots to support its foliage mass is really, really important. All right, so the next podcast, or this podcast, is I've thought about it long and hard and thought, what can I do? And I think it's important that with your bonsai that you always consider taking the next step. So no matter what stage your bonsai's at, it's what's the next step and what do I do with it? And there's little things, something like branch taper is really important for the advancement of your tree. And having not just a trunk taper from thick at the base to thin at the apex, but having a branch which sort of starts thicker at the trunk and then tapers on down towards the tips as well is fundamental, and it's sometimes overlooked by people that they're focusing on ramification and the trunk and the bark and the positioning and the pot and all that sort of stuff. But looking at the branches as well, you need to refine those so they're not they're not sausages going one consistent thickness right the way down the whole length. Have them so they start thicker and then taper out towards the end of the branch as well. No matter how big or how small your tree is, it gives you that a nicer impression and a more mature outlook on your tree. So when you're pruning this summer for us, this spring for us, when in Australia, when you're looking at your branches, look at the taper of the branch as well and think, is there somewhere better further down the branch back towards the trunk that you can cut and then regrow or redevelop that branch out further with a nicer taper on it, so then it looks far more appealing and it becomes a much better bonsai. And I was reading a book the other day, and I came across a couple of things which I'll mention throughout the podcast. But one of them was, in the word of nature, every day is a new day. So nothing and no one can remain in the same place. And that's really pertinent to bonsai because they're not static. It's one of the things I love, as I've mentioned many times before. They evolve, they continue to develop. So taking the next step with your bonsai should be something that you have in mind every single time. You not just work on the tree, but every single time that you walk past that tree and you have a look at it. Where's it going to go to next? How's this branch going to develop? How's the apex going to develop? What sort of pot's it going to go into? It's always, everything's a step. It's a building block. The Great Wall of China was built one brick at a time, and it's a marvellous feat. It's amazing. Your bonsai should be exactly the same, one brick at a time. Every time you do something with that tree, it's just one little brick. It might not seem much, might seem insignificant at the time, but years and years and years down the track, and your joy and contentment when you look at that tree, knowing what you've done for it, should make the hair stand up on your arm and prickle come up the back of your neck and go, I'm really proud because one brick at a time, you see the branches start to taper out to a nicer point. Hopefully you think back to this podcast and go, that's right, I remember that, I heard that, and I've focused on that for the last 2 years, and now look at the tree. It's really gone a lot further forward than what I thought was possible by going backwards one step and improving that, or making a cut on that branch to try and improve the taper. It's really easy for your development and the development of your bonsai to stagnate. It's not so much running out of ideas, but possibly not knowing what the possibilities are. And I think that the internet's like a coin. One side, it's fantastic for bonsai. It's lovely, it's great. You see you get access to so much information, so many great trees. But on the other side of the coin, you get access to so much wrong information, and which could be disheartening. It could be negative. It could dampen your spirits just by one stupid little comment from a person who knows nothing about you, your trees, or what they're talking about, full stop. So I say, look to the internet for inspiration with a helmet on, because you just need to be careful and make sure that you're not going to get hurt along the way. And I think it's great not to mimic, not to copy, not to duplicate, but to look for inspiration on things. And it's great. It's like reading magazines, bonsai magazines. There's plenty of different ones out there in all different nationalities and languages. But I think getting that sort of stuff coming to your letterbox every month or every 2 months or whatever it is is a source of inspiration. You know, you should tear off that plastic and get into the pages straight away and have a look at the beautiful photos in there, and you know, try and, when you go to bonsai shows, look under the lid of the bonsais and have a look at their structure, and think back to your own trees and look at pushing things, you know, taking that next step, as I talked about a bit earlier. And I think that coming into where I want to take this podcast is, you know, I built Bonsai Matsu, which is predominantly a bonsai training school, and I built my business on 3 I's: to inspire, to inform, and to involve. So I work on my own trees and customers' trees and collections, that sort of thing, but really I use the delivery method of Instagram and Facebook to show my trees as a source of inspiration. You know, so it might give people ideas that I'm talking about here, and then through the classes and through podcasts or whatever else it is that I can do, I try and inform and advise exactly how I practice bonsai, and to pass on those techniques that I think are, you know, may be relevant. And then the last one, which I think is the most important, is to involve. You know, it's not just sitting back and getting told what to do. It's being coached and worked through the process, which is where you can take the next step. I was talking to a friend last night, and he's relatively new to bonsai, and I said the evolution that I see with bonsai is that it goes from being just tell me what to do to, okay, so what do you think of this, to, okay, I've done this, what do you think, to, hey, have a look at this. And it's those steps that I really encourage people to take, and not be reliant on somebody or a mentor or a teacher or something like that to always provide the information, but to reassure you and reaffirm what you know to be right, but you just want that little bit of a, hey, are you sure? And that's where a lot of the contact for me comes into it, from a lot of people with, hey, I've got this, what do you think? It's, yeah, cool, I'm more than happy to help, more than happy to give you my 2 cents worth. It's really important not to remain insular with your bonsai. You know, get out to nurseries. You know, if you can't go to bonsai shows, or you don't want to look on the internet, go out there, look at friends' collections. Go to bonsai nurseries, try and get inspiration. Go to Japanese gardens around the place. Look at trees in the wild. Use time not necessarily to buy stock when you go to nurseries, but just to maybe study techniques and designs. You know, because nurseries are great. Now, they might not be finished type trees. There might be stock trees that they've got there, but the techniques, where they've made the cuts, you know, for the trunk line and that sort of thing, I find nurseries are great at that sort of stuff. Speak to the people that are there and ask them what they do with this. How do they look after that tree? What do they do with that species? Do they get any issues with pest and disease? And you know, they're dealing with this stuff 24/7. So pick their brains when you're in there, and step in closer. Don't just look at the silhouette of trees and go, that's pretty. Get into it, you know, and encourage family and friends to look at your trees too, because you want to not only share the passion with them, but take someone, you know, it's like taking a step back and looking in at something you've created. When you bring in family or friends, especially family, you know, they can be brutally honest, absolutely brutally honest. And there might be something in the tree that you've not considered before, or you're too close to it that you don't actually step back and look at it and go, well, you know what, that design feature or whatever it is that they've talked about they don't like, I can fix that, and I can see that is an issue with this tree. So, you know, getting extra people involved and you know, show them your passion, show them what you love. You know, be proud of what you're doing. Might be something simple, something really, really basic, something that you've looked at the tree and looked at it and go, there's something about this. There's something on that tree that's just not right. I guarantee you, pretty much get you know, a partner, a sibling or a child to go out there and they'll be as honest as a sledgehammer in the back of the head. They will let you know exactly what they think is right or wrong with the tree. Don't take it as an insult. Take it as an opportunity to actually, you know, reassess the design on your trees. Don't be upset about it. Art's subjective, and bonsai, every bonsai is unique. No two are the same, and no two people will look at the same tree and see everything the same. They'll look at it very differently, and that's the beauty of what we do. That's the beauty of bonsai.
Images of our lives, souvenirs of the soul, colours so warm, so bright. Images of heroes past, ocean pictures on the wall, moments that meant so much.
So the online world of bonsai, it's really important, I think, to peel back the curtain a little bit on the bonsais that you see. Don't just double tap it and move on, scrolling through. Whoever's put the photo up has put a lot of work into it, no matter whether it's a masterpiece or it's a beginner or whatever it is. Try and zoom in, try and have a look at the structure of the tree. One-dimensional photos, not going to be ideal, but if it's all you've got to use it. It's another resource to build up your bonsai library, your arsenal when you look at your own trees or you get a chance to work on a tree. Look at the techniques that are being used, especially on freshly styled stock. If you see someone that's worked on a piece of Yamadori, a wild collected tree, or a piece of nursery stock, and you see a before and after, and you think, wow, don't just wow and double tap or give it a like. Have a zoom in, have a look and see what they've done. Try and get into the crux of what they've done and how they've bent branches or how they've moved things into place, because some of it's pretty dramatic. I do caution it with the fact that you very often do not get to see the same trees a month later or even a week later or even a year later to see if they've survived the process. So a wow for a dead tree is probably not valid, but have a look. Nonetheless, it's really important, especially some of the overseas artists. The more advanced guys do some great stuff with the trees. So it's really nice to zoom in and have a look. It's never as good as actually being in the same room as the person when they're doing the work, or hands on being shown the technique by somebody who's trained. But like I said, it's a start, building up that knowledge that you've got, and having a good mentor and educator can really accelerate your learning and personal development with your bonsai. So you want something consistent though. When you take the next step with your trees, it's really important that when you start seeking out a mentor at a club or nursery or whatever it is, you've got to be very consistent with your approach. You can't be looking at the approach that you use this week changing next week. It's got to be consistent, week on week, year on year, month after month after month. You've got to be consistent with how you approach your trees. That the chopping and changing of strategy and different methodologies. There's always a different way to skin a cat, but with bonsai, I really encourage you just to be consistent with your path. Make sure that you're not jumping around with it. So, bring on spring. We are a couple of days away, and spring may be based around length of the days and lunar cycles and all that sort of stuff. But I'm telling you now that when the 1st of September hits us here, it's going to look like winter was distant past. As I look out now amongst my trees, there's a green hue starting to form over the entire collection. The deciduous are all looking quite nice. They're flowering plum. Their petals are just about ready to open up and do a nice little show for everybody. So I always feel when spring comes around, it's like a clean slate. By the time you get to summer, your trees are exhausted. Maybe a mistake with watering your trees a couple of hours too late, where the leaves may get burnt and damaged, or a branch may have a little bit of dieback. It hits 45 degrees and it's blowing a gale, but you're stuck in the car and you can't get home to water. Those sort of little mistakes, when spring comes around, they're all long forgotten. with spring comes new growth, new possibilities, and your development of your trees gets going again. You know, your ramification takes that next step. You're pushing one step further forward. And the clock starts ticking as soon as spring gets here, and you've got to get ready to manage that growth. You know, you've got to get into your head. What's my plan for this tree? Am I developing the trunk? All right, let me grow out the branches. Am I developing branch thickness? All right, let me pick a sacrifice branch on that one and grow it out. Am I developing the ramification, or I've got to get out there and start pinching the foliage when it pops out? You know, has it been really newly repotted? Do I need to let the growth go for a little bit first so the roots can establish themselves and then prune it back? It's all those things that you need to be ready for now. Don't trip across it. Don't make it something that you get surprised by, because it's the time. And be prepared. With new growth comes the bugs, comes the pest. You know, there's prevention and there's management. And you know, I've recently sprayed my trees with a systemic fungicide and insecticide in the last day, just to make sure that when the buds do all pop out, when the leaves all open and everything starts going, I've got the best possible chance of stopping too much permanent damage with that new growth, and I get to use it for what I want and not for feeding colonies of bugs. If you think about bugs with your new growth on your trees being like a 10-year-old kid in all-you-can-eat ice cream buffet, once they know the gate's opened, they'll just come in hordes and they will start massive destruction on your trees. So it's one of those things that you need to make sure that, you know, your morning coffee is out there and looking and being alert and making sure that you're on top of it. It is a tricky time, and you know, I'm not going to get into the sprays and stuff like that, because I think that's you know, for everyone to work out their environment and their situation as to how heavy you go with it. I do strongly recommend that you never use Confidor ever again. It had its time. It's been used. It's now been shown to us, not to be controversial, but it has an impact on the bee population. So I don't use it, and I don't think you need to. I think there's definitely other alternatives out there that you can use. Enough said. So stop any infestations before they get out of hand. Make sure your daily care is, you know, looking for new growth, looking for bugs. Do I need to spray individual trees? Do I need to get on and spray everything and stop it? You know, just be mindful that it is all about to start. So now's the time to stop and smell the roses too. The flowering bonsai come into their own. Vast majority of them. You know, I've got quince that are opening. They just look magnificent. There's camellias. The azaleas seem to be doing their thing as well. There's all the fruiting trees. I've got a magnolia, which is enormous. It's just beautiful with these lovely big, you know, flowers that are the size of your head, which just look amazing. So take care and enjoy the time that we're about to step into as well. It can get busy. It can seem daunting, but don't let it be like that. Let it be positive. Let it be something that you cherish and smell the roses. You know, the fragility of a cherry blossom's beauty is why it's most prized, and it's only there for such a very short time. You know, so don't miss it. Don't miss a day going out amongst your trees. Don't miss a second out there looking at them. You know, I think I know bonsai have to be kept outside, but when you've got one that's flowering, bring inside. Let those close to you, the ones that you love, see it, enjoy it, and then when it's finished its flowering session, then by all means you can put it back outside again. But just make the most of it. It's a great time of year. Bonsai comes into its own with all this beautiful new delicious growth, flowers. So enjoy yourself, enjoy your bonsai. Thank you once again for tuning in and taking the time to listen to me rabbit on. I do really appreciate the feedback that I get from a lot of people from all around the world. It's really nice, really encouraging, and I'm glad that in some way my humble approach to bonsai is hitting a chord with quite a few people, and that I'm possibly spurring people on to enjoy their bonsai a little bit more. So Please stay in touch via Facebook or Instagram, via the website bonsaimatsu.com. And until next time, enjoy spring if you're in this part of the world. If you're not, enjoy autumn. You've got some great times coming ahead too if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. Make the most of every second with your bonsai and keep looking at taking that next step forward. Until next time, happy bonsai.